We in the Senate have the good fortune and privilege to be present at occasionally extraordinary moments. One, for instance, was Senator Kennedy, who I'm thinking of today. He's not with us, but other people have mentioned him. His return to the Senate for the critical Medicare vote, where he made such a difference after his diagnosis. The year before, it was probably Senator Schumer's hearing in this committee that brought Deputy Attorney General Comey before us to tell an appalling and astonishing tale of the mission to Attorney General Ashcroft's bedside. Deputy Attorney General Comey and FBI Director Mueller with their lights on, racing to the hospital, pounding up the stairs to try to get there. The FBI Director calling ahead to the agents by the stricken Attorney General's bedside to tell them, whatever you do, don't leave this man alone in the room with the Whitehouse counsel and Chief of Staff to the President. Don't let them throw Comey out of the room. And then after that, we've learned about the eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation between the Department of Justice and the White House. Jim Comey's testimony was remarkable. I know he is a supporter of yours, that he supports your nomination, and that he's written to us on your behalf. What struck me was the personal nature of some of his discussion, of how lonely and exposed it felt to be that far out under that much pressure, standing on that principle. And I know you have been there as well. As a United States attorney, you were there when you indicted and convicted the Democratic chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, probably one of the handful of most powerful men in this town. You were there again as Deputy Attorney General when you cleared a special prosecutor to go after a member of the cabinet of the president who appointed you. And you were certainly there when you cleared the expansion of the investigation of the president himself, who had appointed you. If you don't mind me asking you a personal question, can you tell us a little bit about what you were feeling at those moments? And in those moments, if it was lonely, as I suspect it was, what were your touchstones that gave you the courage and confidence to go forward and continue with those difficult decisions?
Well, I appreciate the question, Senator Whitehouse, and I'm sure you have felt those moments as well, having been the United States Attorney and having had to make those lonely decisions. I think you go back to the beginning and why we took those jobs. You wanted to do the right thing. We swore to an oath to uphold the law. And if you're going to be a good prosecutor, you have to treat the facts that come before you, irrespective of the political party of the person who might be involved, the connection they might have to you, personal or otherwise, the impact that it's going to have on the administration that you serve. That is why the Attorney General is different. It has to be in some ways distant from the cabinet, even from the president that the Attorney General serves. Personally, those were not necessarily difficult decisions because it's what I expected of myself and what people who mean something to me would expect of me. Not difficult in that sense, but they were nevertheless ones that after made, I think you reflect on, and you have feelings about the impact of those decisions on the lives of people who you admire, people who you have worked with. It doesn't give you any great sense of joy to have done them, and yet it is what you're called on to do. It is what I will do if I'm fortunate enough to become the next Attorney General of the United States, to make those kinds of decisions in the way that I have in the past, lonely ones as you've described them, but the right decision. I think I've shown a capacity to do it in the past and a determination to do it in the future.
Thank you. Let me rattle off a few quick questions. The Bush administration knocked down the firewall between the Department of Justice and the White House that limited conversations on cases to a very, very small number of officials. I have many disagreements with Attorney General Mukasey, but to his credit, he did rebuild that firewall. Will you pledge to us to maintain it?
I will. Have been presumptuous enough that we have actually started working on that in anticipation for whoever might be Attorney General. I'm not going to be so presumptuous there, but so that the communication between the White House and the Justice Department reflects that which Judge Mukasey has put in, Attorney General Mukasey has put in place, and is consistent with what existed during the Clinton administration.
The tainting, some would even say corruption, of the Department of Justice during the course of this administration has been both pervasive and systematic. It is my view that, frankly, if we went down this committee and everybody listed something that bothered them that had happened, and you had that whole list assembled, there'd still be more. In that regard, what process do you think is appropriate coming on, to use a sailing metaphor, as the new captain of the ship, to do a damage assessment, see what needs to be fixed, and that way you can move on to the business, but you will know as the commander of the department that there is a process in place to make sure that whatever has been left undone, that ought to have been done, or whatever has been done that ought not to have been done, is set right.
Well, I think you said it out. An assessment has to be done, and that assessment has already begun in the transition effort that is ongoing. Attorney General Mukasey, Deputy Attorney General Phillip have been most generous in sharing information with us, been honest with us, very frank with us in pointing out places that they think need special attention. I have to say about those two gentlemen that the only thing they were not given was the luxury of time. I think that given more time, they would have done more. But we're going to have time. Hopefully I will be one of the people who will have that time. And it is incumbent upon those who will run the Justice Department to do that damage assessment. Given what has happened, where does the damage still exist, and then come up with mechanisms to try to repair that. A lot of it will be inspirational. There are a lot of people who are still down in the department. So there has to be that kind of connection. I think it's going to have to be a personal connection. I think, should I be confirmed, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time walking the halls, getting on airplanes and talking to people in the field at the various U.S. attorneys' offices, and making them feel a sense of mission, that the Justice Department is back in the way that it traditionally has been. And as I said previously, under Republican and Democratic attorneys general,